All right, welcome to the Davis Download. Today we're going to talk about the protest over ICE and more specifically the start of it with Renee Good in Minnesota. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
All right, let's get some context here, guys, to kind of guide our discussion, and then we'll jump into, certainly the conversation, debate, and discussion on it. So here to start off, I felt like providing the context of how the whole week flowed out would be helpful. So it started out, even before all of this, we talked last week about the fraud that Nick Shirley and his team exposed going to Minneapolis and going kind of door to door to the daycare centers. If you missed that episode, you should go check it out. And they not only went to the daycare centers, they went to the health providing centers with all the Somalian people, and they were questioning what's going on here. They were doing some of that hardcore journalism that we talked about on the streets, man on the streets type of work. So all of that was going on the week prior. On Tuesday, President Trump sent Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. He sent her, and then along with that, 2,100 ICE agents into Minneapolis to take a look into this fraud and then to take illegal immigrants out of Minneapolis who were not supposed to be there. And I saw one news outlet said that this was the largest ICE operation of all time. 2,100 ICE agents sent into the city. So this was a large-scale operation that was done. So with that context, then we have, in the chaos of this many people coming into town, there were, of course, protests being held in response. Once people found this out, I heard that people were communicating through Blue Sky and through all these different apps and formats and stuff like that, letting people know where the ICE agents were, how to get away from them and stuff like this. And of course, with this, there were people who were harassing the ICE agents as well. So this is where we get to the story of Renee Nicole Good, who unfortunately has passed away. She was in an altercation with an ICE agent, and she was in her vehicle at the time of the recording that we saw. And in this interaction with an ICE agent, she does hit the ICE agent with her SUV, and the ICE agent fires on her, and she did pass away, I think either that day or maybe the next day after that. But so getting into this debate here, let's talk about this. What could have been done better in this situation? What could have changed? What do we think of this situation of sending 2,100 ICE agents to Minneapolis in response to all that's going on with the fraud? Seems like Minnesota is kind of the hub of the U.S. right now with all the news that's flying through it. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll go first. I'm thinking, one, there is a problem with immigration and things like that in America as a whole, and that's sort of why Trump was elected, to kind of tamp down on some of this. And the other part of it being that these people were, so they call it protesting, but when you are blockading federal officials, you can't do that. That's a crime. You can't block streetways just because you are upset about what's happening. And again, like you said, what happened to Renee Good, terrible. The loss of life is bad in any sense because all human life has dignity and value. But with that said, you can't put yourself in harm's way and then be shocked by the consequences. It's like, if a cop pulls you over in your car and you are reaching in your pocket and pulling out, something bad is going to happen. Why? Because that cop is thinking of his safety and they're trained to end threats. When you have a 1,200-pound vehicle barreling at you, it makes sense as to why he did what he did. Corey?
Yeah, no, I think it's just sad that, like you said, that something like this happens and it's immediately, well, everyone's got to have talking points. She was a victim of the left brain virus thing, and then, or on the other side, it's, well, it was these right-wing evil fascist dictator Gestapo Secret Service type. And it's I think it just is a sad situation. I don't think that the agent went home fist bumping being great day at work today, you know what I'm saying? I also don't, you watch the video, I don't know how you can come down on any side and say it was definitive. A, she tried to hit the ICE agents, or B, the ICE agent 100% was just I'm doing this in cold blood. Like, I think it was just a difficult situation, and probably both people probably, you run that back, but I think both people probably choose. The whole situation goes differently, obviously, but unfortunately, that's not, like you said. Regardless, actions have consequences, and I think just overall we need to be mindful. Just like actions have consequences, the way we talk about other people's actions, also has consequences. So I don't think it needs to be this is leftist brain virus, woke mob, Trump derangement syndrome. We're living in a Gestapo world. I don't think that's true. I also don't think it's true that I think the ICE agent was just trying to do his job, wanted to go home. And when you hear the background story of how he just was involved with the vehicular accident, like, everybody's got those things that, I hate to use the word trigger, but like, have those like things where you've been in a situation and it reminds you of something and you're like, like, I'm never going to run down a hill again. Now, obviously, it's a little bit lighter. There we go. Obviously, it's a little bit lighter of a situation, but again, I think it's just sad, and I just hate the narrative that, like, the fact that this is trying to be used as a narrative to gain political points on either way. I just think it stinks.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like that it's so terrible that when a tragedy happens, it's like, oh, you have to be alt-right or you have to be alt-left. And so I do resonate with that, look, situations and even the political debates that we have, they're so much more complex than the simplicity that we dwindle them down to. And we say, well, you're either in this camp or you're in that camp. When it's like, well, to Corey's point, honestly, both people probably should have handled things a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I actually wanted to ask a question with this. As far as operationally, I don't know about you guys, but just watching, of course, it's a short clip, right? I don't know what you guys saw. I saw two angled clips. I saw one from the ICE agent's perspective, and then one from
like
the lady
behind the truck, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw a few different perspectives, but just with that short clip that I saw, I thought it was strange. Although I do agree that you need to respect law enforcement when they tell you to do something. She was clearly told multiple times on video and audio, get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car. She should have obeyed law enforcement. But at the same time, to Corey's point, it's true that, look, it's a tragedy that she died and that this, probably needed to be de-escalated in some way, shape, or form. But when we consider the context of the situation operationally, I've never seen a law enforcement officer stand in front of a vehicle. That was one thing that I was just looking at it, and I was like, that does seem strange of why we would choose that tactic, because there was a group of three coming up on the side, and that's how I've always seen law enforcement engage with a threat. Mm-hmm. And I understand she was harassing. I understand that she was moving her vehicle around a lot. So I don't have that video footage.
To be honest, the video, like, it just looks very confusing what's going, so these were ICE agents. I mean, why are they like holding court out in the middle of the street? And like, is immigration really that bad to where they can just literally set up a checkpoint and they're gonna get like what?
I don't think it was that. I think
what was that?
Their car was stuck in the snow, from what I understand, and they were already trying to ICE's car was stuck in the snow. They were trying to get it out. This lady decided to block them in so that they couldn't push out. So I imagine he was already out, because that other car that's like in the middle of the road is the ICE vehicle. I imagine he was already in front, not, trying to stop her or anything, but, trying to get the car out of the snow. And I think it is important to mention, too, that she was following them all afternoon.
Yeah, she was harassing them all. That's clearly documented.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
So, if you have another point.
Yeah, I was going to say, back to the point of rhetoric, I think it is important that, people don't seize on the moment. But I do think what the catalyst behind Renee even being there was rhetoric, right? When you have people out in the media, social media, saying that ICE agents are the Gestapo, they're thugs, they're this, they're that. Of course, people want to stand up against injustice.
Yeah.
And they should. But the problem is, and this is where I might disagree with someone that wants to abolish ICE, but they aren't the Gestapo simply because they're doing something that you don't agree with politically.
Yeah.
So her being there was more due to rhetoric than I think one would like to admit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but damn, Dang, well, I remembered it and I forgot it again.
So, yeah, that's why you need a little notepad like me. Be a nerd and just start taking notes when you. I forget everything. But anyways, so to this point here, J.D. Vance. I don't know if you guys saw his White House response. He stepped into the press secretary's role. What's the lady's name?
Levitt.
Yeah.
Levitt. Caroline Levitt. She's great. She's always giving it to the media. But anyways, so J.D. Vance, she welcomed him in, and he gave a very firm response to the media because of some of the articles and headlines that they were putting out. And I was listening to this, just kind of what is the White House's response and perspective on this. And, I'm sure law enforcement is very appreciative of the backing of the White House because, at times during certain administrations, that is not always the case. J.D. Vance brought some very strong accusations against Renee Good and those who were with her, the party that was with her. He argued that Good was a part of a left-wing activist group paid to harass ICE agents and follow them around Minneapolis. He also argued that the protesters were fully funded by a far left-wing activist group and that they are going to appoint a new assistant AG position to go after these fraudulent left-wing activist group fundings to make sure that this does not happen again and to make sure that federal officers are not harassed when they are asked to go execute a job that the federal government has asked them to go perform. So with JD's context here, and of course we'll have to see what comes out with the evidence, right? Obviously these are strong accusations. But, following up with that, if that is the truth, I mean, clearly then we have some bigger issues. And Charlie Kirk brought these elements up too as well. This was a big part of his influence in the White House was like, how can we not only not try to hurt the citizens of a town or a city, but how can we cut out the people who are funding this stuff, the bigwigs who aren't going, but they're funding the pile of bricks that they're dropping off at these sites to go break the windows or whatever.
Yeah, I saw this video, again, Nick Shirley posted, but he's going from New York City to Minneapolis to all these big cities, and he's recording, and you see these protesters, and he's literally calling them out by name. He's like, Stacy, what are you doing here? And they are flabbergasted. That's why he's like, didn't you get arrested in Portland? And it's it obviously is not organic. It's not from the ground up. There's something behind what's happening. I don't know who it is. I don't pretend to know. But if there is, someone paying for people to agitate in different cities, and my question is, what is the purpose? What is their underlying thing? And I think, again, just my opinion, but it has to be something to do with destabilization, because this is how you get a nation to be rocked. If you can get enough people riled up, and all it takes, human nature, it takes 3 people in a crowd, one person throws a stone, and then mayhem ensues. Even if it was, quote unquote, a peaceful event or whatever it was.
Yeah. I never understood how people can protest in the middle of the day. Again, whatever side. What do you have? How do you not? Where do you work? I just never understood it. I mean, I guess if you got the PTO time, I don't know. I would probably spend. That's what I'm saying. Good for them if you go to that place.
On that too, I saw Laura Ingraham was talking to someone, and she's like, "Don't you have a job?" And she's like, "I'm getting paid now."
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
exactly the point.
Yeah, hey, credit to those sick gig if you can get it. I guess just to hang out in the street. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think again, you think the country's kind of built on protest in a sense, too. So it's kind of like that.
And JD did
what goes around comes around. I don't know.
JD did bring this up as well in his press briefing, and I thought he did a good job of kind of working that line well of hey, we do have paid antagonists, maybe is the word I'm looking for, people who are paid antagonists. Well, then he said as well, look, if you really have an issue with ICE, if you have an issue with our immigration policy on the federal level, then your voice is the ballot box, right? Then force us out of office. And to his point, I think Trump has a mandate from the American people that, look, the American people responded, and one of their biggest things was immigration. That was one of the top 3 issues, wherever you want to rank it in the top 3. And so I thought JD did a good job of articulating that. That's kind of been his role. He's very articulate.
Yeah, and I guess, because we were talking about this earlier, the idea of people are against illegal immigration, but also seem to not really like ICE. Mm-hmm. Now, again, maybe, obviously, I think a lot of times the left-leaning side does a better job of being able to tell a story and tell a narrative than the right. So they only use the clip and I've seen, you've probably seen a couple of these clips where it's like, you got 30 ICE agents walking out, 2 guys who were working at like a car workshop or a car dealership. It's like, so just oftentimes you see like a weird appearance. Like most people are gonna be like, why do you need 30 agents to walk out one guy who was working at like the factory? So again, I'm not saying it's just appearance. Like again, narrative. Like unfortunately, the world we live in, like we're talking, it's all narrative driven. So I think the right has to do a little bit better at playing the game in a sense.
Though the problem is this. So yes, they get the picture and they get the narrative to say, hey, 30 agents took out one guy and things like that. But then you have instances like this where people are following them, tracking down ICE agents. So not only do we have to get this person in custody, but we have to be worried about 40 people following us with cars. We got to be worried about people attacking. I saw in Minnesota, the police force are not allowed to have anything to do with ICE. Usually what the police force does in that community is they act as a buffer between the public and ICE, what they're doing. So yeah, the narrative is there, but it's because it's a reality that these guys got to watch their backs and constantly look over their shoulder.
There's a distrust there from the federal level, obviously, to the state level, mm-hmm. with Tim Walz being the governor, and he's said that he's not running again because of all the scandal that's gone on. And then even the mayor himself told Trump, and he told ICE, get the F out of my city. Yeah. So what we have is a political fight going on.
Yeah.
The politicians, unfortunately, in this case the mayor, he's using the police force, the local police force, the Minneapolis PD, he's using them to his political advantage. He's saying don't back ICE, don't help them out. And then I read an article today that said the chief of the police force in Minneapolis said that he had no alert, no heads up that they were coming in. And again, I'm sure there was because of the rift that's taking on politically between Trump, Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance, and Tim Walz, they're not gonna notify a left-wing Democrat mayor that ICE is coming in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So in these political fights, it's always the middle people that end up kind of taking on the brunt of the effect or the aftermath. But so then is it worth considering? Minneapolis is not gonna, or the state of Minnesota at this point is not gonna really. So just
I don't think you do that. I think
because you're only setting you're going there. And I understand why you're saying no, but you can explain further in a second. But why not send the ICE agents to places where they're gonna get the backing of the local police and if there's this many illegal immigrants in the country, they've got to be everywhere, right? There's no way there's 21 million illegal immigrants just in Minneapolis, right? There's probably just as much in pick your red state. Why not focus it on there, right? Because then ultimately it's those economies and those areas that are going to suffer, and then if that goes well, then you know what, maybe those states eventually turn red.
So I think 2 reasons why you shouldn't do that. One, because each of these cities are American cities. The White House is there to protect the people of blue cities, red cities, independent cities, whatever it is. They have an obligation to protect all citizens, so they have to be there. The second thing is, again, look at Minnesota and the fraud levels. If we just let these cities just say, hey, you do what you want, we're not going to bother you, and then we start getting $9 billion worth of fraud and things like that, like we have in Minnesota now, that's going to be a problem. If we do that in New York, California, Minnesota, Portland, Washington, all these places, then $9 billion turns into $18 billion, 27. We can't afford to do that. So for 2 reasons, just leaving the city, we can't have American cities turning into Gotham. It's just, you can't do it.
You guys remember Chaz or whatever it was called?
But again, that
Autonomous Zone.
Yeah, that lasted 20 minutes because it didn't work, right? And so that
was kind of funny.
It was wild.
That was quite a time.
All of COVID, that whole 2020, 2019, just wild. Everything was crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, I do get your point. They are American cities and all that, and I'm not saying just completely abandon them, but if you know, you probably had an idea, right? If our leaders have any, because that's what you kind of have to do as a leader. Like, if I make this decision, what are the possible what are all possible consequences, and are all those possible consequences? So why send 21,000 or 2,100 agents into that city, knowing there was probably going to be a bunch of? Why not be more covert about it? Why not go get why not just send 100 guys and be like, hey, low key, just these guys, this guy, this guy.
Because again, you have people like Renee Good that are going to run you over with their car.
Yeah, but if there's but it was a big deal though. It's like you set off a warning, like you set off an alarm, be like, hey, these guys are here.
Yeah.
I think to your point, politically, if I was advising Trump, that I would have told him not to do it. Because think of the context that we were talking about last week, where all the attention was on the left. Mm-hmm. They were getting defeated. Tim Walz was almost resigning, right? Yeah. At this moment, he said, I'm not running again. It sounded like he was about to resign to me. I don't know what you guys were hearing. I thought this guy was going to step down. The mayor was under a lot of heat. Mm-hmm. And then Trump sends in 2,100 troops. Well, ICE agents.
And now it's flipped.
And now people are like, what's the right doing? What's ICE doing? Why is Trump doing this? And to me, I understand, hey, all of this, you're trying to capitalize on the corruption and, all this stuff. And from a political strategy standpoint, I would have left that attention there. I would have stayed out of the bee's nest, and I would have said, look, they're all going to kill each other.
If you're talking in terms of morally, maybe, or ethically, did he probably do the right thing by sending in a bunch? Probably. But in terms of political, it ended up being the wrong choice.
Here's my opinion. I think Trump is less about the political right now. He is all about how can I leave the lasting legacy. He wants to finish as many wars as possible. Yeah. He wants to eject as many illegal immigrants as possible. He wants to eliminate as much fraud as possible. And he's honestly, I think he's like, to heck with politics. I'm done. Okay. I'm not coming back. Maybe. So let me just hammer it all out, and then you guys have to figure it out on your own.
Yes.
Which honestly, if there was, Trump isn't the politician that's going to smooth things out or be calculated politically. Again, that's like true. We said, he is kind of like, what's going to win, and that's what he goes for.
But to my point, though, Trump needs this midterm bad. Yep. He needs this midterm bad.
Or else he's doing nothing.
Exactly. That's true. He'll be a dead duck. And so if you can keep the attention on how incompetent the Democrats are, just let them kill themselves, politically speaking. And why change the narrative to switch this? And now all the attention is now on Trump, which he does like, but...
He does love the attention. The thing is, though, too, again, I think, and this just may have been what it is, he may have been high on his fumes of victories. Like, he just captured Maduro. He just, all these things.
That doesn't sound like him, though.
He's like, I'm feeling good. Let's give one more. And this was, the hair that could have broken the back of the camel.
Yeah. Do you think he's the kind of guy who has just a bunch of yes men around him? Like, whatever he says, there's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Or do you think he has people who are like, no, what are we doing?
I feel like he does kind of want people that are that will challenge him a little bit, but I don't know if he's a.
But when it's something minor, be like, okay, yeah, I hear you. But if it's something major, like nobody was probably talking him out of that Venezuela decision.
I think Trump rather, it's more of an approval thing. Let me phrase it this way, in the sense that a staff member, let's say in this case, Homeland Security Secretary. That's tough to put together there. Secretary of Homeland Security. How about that? Kristi Noem, I think she's coming to him with a proposal saying, hey, we see all this fraud going on. Trump, will you approve the largest ICE operation in U.S. history? And he's like, yeah, I love it. Great idea.
He hears largest ever. He's like, exactly. It'll be big.
Yeah. I think it's just more of an approval thing. I don't think he's sitting around his desk and be like, what can ICE do next? I think he has people in the positions, and then they're coming to him. They're saying, hey, can we do this? And he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I love it. It's a great idea. Just make it the biggest ever.
Yeah, probably.
Here's my frustration with this overall, and I think it gets to to the whole picture of it, is that Congress refuses to address immigration. Mm-hmm. You look at our country, even since its founding, why does Congress not have a law in the books when it comes to immigration? Yeah. We look at the pendulum swing so far. President Biden allowing in, experts say different numbers, but anywhere from 10 to 16 million immigrants during his administration. And now we have this crackdown under Trump where Trump's sending everybody back, and we have this whiplash. And it's just like, can we just get a law in the books that says, hey, this is what it is across the board, but Congress refuses to do it? It's so infuriating.
Well, that would mean people have to show up and do their job.
Yes, Congress never does their job. I agree. We can agree there.
I think the biggest thing though with that is no one wants to be the person that says like, oh, you don't want to let in Venezuelans, you don't want to let in Haitians, you don't want to let in Russians or whatever. So they're like, where's the end? So it's kind of like the football that you don't want to be caught left in your hands, at least.
I guess so. Let's consider maybe even a biblical angle with this. How about this? So I was doing some research on some passages, and we have Exodus 22, Exodus 23, of course, right after the Ten Commandments, and Exodus 20, where God's laying out the law of the land for the Israelite people. You go to Leviticus 19, and I think even within this context, you could consider the parable of the Good Samaritan. From a Christian standpoint, we certainly are called to love sojourners, and some translations even include the word immigrants within that context, because in the context in these Old Testament scenarios is that because the Israelite people themselves were immigrants in the land of Egypt, God calls them to be gracious and benefit their neighbors and their immigrants around them. So how as Christians do we live in this world today in America? How do we apply those principles to today? What does that look like? What is an American Christian immigration response, and what do those principles look like?
Yeah, I think firstly though, first thing to realize is each of these ancient Near Eastern cities had walls around them. The city of David had walls around it. Jerusalem had walls around it because they weren't about to let an invading force just come in. So as we talk about the sojourners, the people that are coming in, I think it's important to note that this was an individual thing, right? It wasn't like if all of Assyria comes down, let them in. No, they were to be separate. They were to be distinct from the other people. The other thing is, though they treated them well, they were not, sojourners just walking through was not integrated into all fabrics of life. They were not allowed to go into the temple. They were not, to the, section where the Jews were allowed to go. Why? Because there was a distinction. So I think today we can be kind to those who come into our country while still saying you must obey the law. You must obey, and I mean the law, not just that you go the speed limit, but the way that you come into the nation. You must abide by those rules. I don't think anywhere in the Old Testament would you find a command where the king decrees no one can come into the gates, and then someone's like, but these people are nice, let them in. It wouldn't work that way. So I think sometimes we oversimplify the command to be kind to the sojourner. Again, I'm not saying that we should not be kind to the person that is coming in, but you still have to obey the governing authority over you.
Yeah, no, obviously the Tower of Babel kind of explains that there is some sort of separation and difference, right? God looked at everybody and was like, yeah, all these people in the same spot talking the same way, it's just going to end up in disaster. So I need to so obviously there's some sort of maybe even providence or wisdom in splitting up a bunch of people and having everybody with different cultures and all of that. Now, again, and this is always going to be an age-old argument, where does kindness versus wisdom and governing, how do those intermingle? Where's the line? Where are you being one too much of the other versus, how do you find the right balance? And I think that can be tough, some people, again, there is this idea of the, American dream. This really is the only place you can just kind of walk in and become, you can literally change your life here over the course of a couple months, So there's that. But then also at the same time, well, again, if we just have billions upon billions of people located in one area, that's probably going to lead to not great things. The last time that happened, God said, yeah, we need a flood. So I don't know. I think it's tough. I think it's tough, and I think that's ultimate. And I think even to a degree, the people here, right, Americans know that, which is why you see the conflict. Yes, we want to uphold the laws and to uphold our sovereignty as a nation, but I don't love seeing video, whether it's true or not, whether it's the 1 out of the 5 billion or whatever. But we also don't love videos of people being like taken away in handcuffs for just, existing. Yes, they broke the law technically, but so I think that I think America, each citizen is kind of like in that boat. So I think it is tough. I don't know if I actually answered the question, but yeah, I don't know. I think it is.
So is that something we can take away from like the Tower of Babel? Is that you feel like that's the context there, that like God was more trying to disperse humanity in that sense?
I don't know if it was. I think it was more of spreading evil ideas. Like,
yeah, that's what. Yeah,
all of you centralized together. But yeah, I think of Micah 6:8 comes to my mind. There's the idea of loving justice and mercy, and even as we talk about people that are not from your country, act justly, right? You have to abide by the law. Love mercy. I'm not gonna, it's just me personally. If there's someone next door living to me that may not be legal, I'm not, calling Christy Nome myself. But I think there is a level of like, hey, love the person next to you. But if Christy Nome was supposed to kick the door down of my neighbor, I'm not going to jump in my car and block her because justice has been served. Who am I to stop justice? I still love that person. I think they were great. They might have been amazing to me. But you can't get upset when justice is delivered either.
That's good.
Yeah, I think too, we sometimes make this is going to sound really bad at first, but let me finish. We overemphasize love over anything in the Bible. It's like this is the theme, and yes, God is love. Yes, God does love people, but not at the detriment of his justice, not at the detriment of him holding people responsible. And I think within the church, we have this idea of, well, just love is the top thing. Well, what is your definition of love? And I think that's the heart of the issue within the evangelical movement. We have some people that love is just acceptance, but love can't just be acceptance, or else everyone would be accepted into heaven. Justice doesn't have a point to stand on.
Have you guys seen those ads where they're like, Jesus was an immigrant? They're always in the Super Bowl for some reason. Like, they get the most expensive ads. They're like, Jesus was an immigrant. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Was Jesus an immigrant? I don't quite think he was. I thought he was actually going back to his home city because they were doing a census. So
his mom and dad were. I don't know how much say he had in that matter. He was kind of in the womb. I don't think he said, hey.
Still in Israel, though, it's like you going back to New York City. It's not like you are an immigrant now.
Yeah, no. I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I know he didn't really have a home, but so I mean,
foxes have holes and birds
have
nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his
if
head.
he was an immigrant, I don't know. He was certainly would fall under sojourner and wanderer.
But no, he is a citizen of Israel.
Yeah.
He's not a sojourner. Maybe he's
sojourn just means travel. I mean, he was a nomad, whatever the term you want to use is.
If that's the idea of sojourner, then what he's talking about is anyone going from the tribe of Naphtali down to Judah, and not the people
and the
outside
tribes
of
we
the
can just
tribes.
consider as like states.
Yeah. So
within the nation.
And I think too, what these people try to say is like, well, he fled to Egypt. Yes, that is true.
That's true.
But Israel was under Roman occupation, and so was Egypt. They were under the same umbrella of Roman control. So it's like if I went to the Virgin Islands, or if I went to Puerto Rico, technically they are not like states. Oh, not technically, they are not states in the United States, but they are under the umbrella of. So if I went there, I'm not leaving the country officially.
So in that context, he was getting out of like a governor's rule, but staying under the president's rule.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, I think that's also a little disingenuous to say, well, I mean, he was 2. It's not like, You know what I'm saying?
True.
So if we're saying Jesus was an immigrant, well, Jesus was in an immigrant. If you're going to make that argument, it sounds like Jesus just picked up and left
So
to
then you
Rome
have
for
this-
better carpentry opportunities. I mean, he left because his mom and dad.
But to play
took
devil's
him.
advocate, you would have to say that about, all the DACA, the kids that have their parents came over. They were 3. They are not immigrants. Their parents are immigrants, and they're just in the family of immigrants.
Well, aren't they by the government? Aren't they considered citizens if you were in
That's
that?
a great debate.
That is, yeah, that's the question.
Trump's trying to figure that out in the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah, I mean that won't get figured out anytime soon. But.
Yeah, I just get Jesus being an immigrant. That's just
No, I was making that point
No,
more
I'm not
so
saying
too.
You said that. I'm just saying people that do that. Like Jesus was an immigrant too. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I get the sentiment. I get what you're trying to say, but no, he wasn't.
Yes, and we do have to hold this doctrine, which I am so perplexed at how this is leaving the Protestant church today. Like, what is going on? Jesus, let's all establish here, let's all agree, Jesus was a Jew, right? And all scripture came from the Jewish people. We love the Jewish people,
Yeah.
and they gave us God's word. So, we need to debunk that, whatever that lie is that's going around for whatever reason.
But the Egyptian jets, though, how do you explain those then?
That's the big question, right?
It is crazy though, because last week we kind of talked about the values of America and how it's built on Judeo-Christian values. You would be baffled at how many people are like, Christianity has nothing to do with Judaism. How could you link the two? And I'm like, Acts 10:43, all the prophets testify about him.
Well, and they do kind of share a book,
Yeah, we do. Yes.
at least half of one.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
2/3.
Jesus himself is a Jew. Most 90, even when Paul is writing, he's writing to synagogues and people like that. Yes, Gentiles as well, but most of the book is for Jews, so you can't divorce the two.
It is so strange to me that people try to separate the two. It's so odd to me. Obviously, they have their own motives and intentions with that. And I believe I'm safe in saying all 66 books were written by Jewish authors, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anyone that would have been excluded.
I'm pretty sure every
Is it-
single one
yeah.
was written by Jewish authors.
There's
so.
no one that you could think of. Yeah, it's baffling. I mean, I love history, and I think of World War II, and one of the first things that the Nazi movement did was to Aryanize. I don't know if that's a word. Jesus, right? They literally are like anything that is Jewish, take it out.
Yeah.
And just Jesus is now not Middle Eastern. So that same idea of and that comes to, and this wasn't where the conversation was going, but that kind of goes to just Christology. Like, what do you think of Christ? And that goes to the fact of love. When the Bible says God is love, I think your theology on who Jesus is going to affect your definition of love, your definition of justice, your definition of everything, even down to, we talked about the sanctity of life a few weeks ago. All of that is intertwined.
Yeah, you can't abandon that doctrine that Jesus was Jewish. He's the king of the Jews, and the Jewish people certainly should have a strong marriage with Christianity.
Yeah.
I don't think you could separate the two.
Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for us today here at the Davis Download. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.